The most valuable things in a tech company aren't the computers, the office space, or even the brand name, they're the intellectual property rights that make everything work. I learned this lesson early in my career, but my investors were about to learn it the hard way. My name is Marcus Chin, and this is the story of how I lost my company but kept the most valuable part of it. 3 years ago, I founded Neurotech, a startup developing revolutionary brain-computer interface technology. Our prototype could help paralyzed patients control robotic limbs with just their thoughts, technology that could change millions of lives. The early days were exciting. Working from my garage with 2 brilliant engineers I'd met at MIT, we created something unprecedented. Our initial tests were promising enough to attract attention from major venture capital firms. That's when Victor Reynolds entered my life. "This is groundbreaking," he said, examining our prototype during his first visit. Victor was a legend in Silicon Valley, known for turning startups into billion-dollar companies. His firm Reynolds Ventures had backed some of the biggest names in tech. We needed funding to begin clinical trials, and Victor offered us $20 million for a 40% stake. The contract seemed standard: board seats, voting rights, the usual startup arrangements. I kept 51% ownership, my co-founders split the remaining 9%. We all thought we were set for success. The first year was amazing. We hired top talent, moved into proper offices, and made rapid progress with our technology. Our initial clinical trials showed results that exceeded everyone's expectations. The medical community was buzzing with excitement. Then things started changing subtly. Victor began pushing for faster commercialization, wanting to expand into consumer applications before we'd perfected the medical technology. Gaming, virtual reality, social media integration, that's where the real money is, he insisted during board meetings. The medical applications can wait. But I stood firm. We'd started this company to help people, not to create another addictive consumer gadget. That's when the pressure began. First came the subtle threats. "Your funding might not be renewed if you continue being difficult," Victor's deputy would mention casually. Then the not-so-subtle ones. Board meetings became increasingly hostile. I started noticing strange things. Key employees being offered jobs at Victor's other companies. Crucial information about our technology development being shared with strategic partners without my approval. Documents going missing from our secure servers. That's when I remembered something my father, a patent attorney, had taught me years ago. In tech, son, always protect your core innovations separately. Companies can be taken, but good patents are forever. Following his advice, I'd taken precautions when we first started. Our core technology, the neural interface algorithms I'd developed, wasn't actually owned by Neurotech. They were licensed from a separate company, Neural Core Technologies, which I'd established before even founding Neurotech. The license agreement was buried in thousands of pages of corporate documents, written in careful legalese that few would notice. Victor and his team had been too focused on the company's visible assets to dig that deep. They saw the ping-pong tables, the fancy offices, the impressive prototypes. They didn't see the carefully crafted legal infrastructure underneath it all. Last month, everything came to a head. Victor called an emergency board meeting, presenting evidence that I had mismanaged company resources. The evidence was clearly fabricated, but that didn't matter. He had the votes. "You have 2 choices," Victor announced, sliding a document across the table. "Sign over your shares for $1, or we'll bury you in lawsuits until there's nothing left of your reputation or your company." My co-founders looked away, already bought off with promises of cushy positions in the reorganized company. The other board members, all Victor's people, sat there with smug expressions. I picked up the papers and read them carefully, paying special attention to what wasn't mentioned. The core technology license wasn't addressed at all. They didn't even know it existed. No argument, no fight. Victor seemed almost disappointed when I signed immediately. "I expected more from you, Marcus." I smiled, gathered my things, and walked out of the company I'd built. Behind me, I could hear them already planning the future: consumer products, rapid expansion, and IPO within a year. That evening my father called. He'd heard the news through his legal contacts. "Did they find it?" he asked simply. "No," I replied. "They were too busy looking at the surface to check the foundation." "How long?" "The license expires in exactly 30 days. Right after they announce their big product launch." He chuckled. "Sometimes the best defense is to let them think they've already won." I spent that night in my home office reviewing the patent documentation one more time. Everything was in order, filed years ago when Neurotech was just an idea in my garage. The real company, the one that owned the core technology, had been protected since day one. Tomorrow, Victor and his board would begin their victory lap, announcing their bold plans for Neurotech's future. They had the company, the prototypes, the offices, and the brand. But sometimes what you can't see is worth more than everything you can. Silicon Valley thrives on big announcements, and Victor Reynolds knew how to put on a show. Exactly 1 month after taking control of Neurotech, he rented the largest auditorium at the San Francisco Convention Center for their product launch. I watched the live stream from my father's law office, surrounded by our legal team. The auditorium was packed with tech journalists, investors, and industry leaders. Victor stood on stage in his signature black turtleneck, doing his best Steve Jobs impression. "Today, Neurotech revolutionizes human-computer interaction," he announced grandly. "Our neural interface technology will transform gaming, social media, and digital communication forever." Behind him, slick videos showed people controlling virtual reality environments with their thoughts, sending messages through brainwaves, playing games without controllers. The audience was mesmerized. "We begin production next month," Victor continued. "Pre-orders open today." That's when our lawyers hit send on 12 carefully prepared letters. One to Neurotech's board. One to their major investors. One to the SE. And most importantly, one to every major tech news outlet that was covering the launch. The first sign that something was wrong came during the Q&A session. A reporter from TechCrunch stood up, looking at her phone with a puzzled expression. "Mr. Reynolds, we've just received information that Neurotech doesn't own the core patents for this technology. Can you comment on that?" Victor's practiced smile flickered slightly. "That's incorrect. We own all the relevant intellectual property." Another reporter jumped in. "According to USPTO records, the neural interface patents are owned by Neural Core Technologies, a separate company. Neurotech only had a limited license that expired today." The audience began murmuring. Investors were frantically checking their phones. Victor's team was passing him urgent notes, but he waved them away. "These are baseless claims," he declared. "Our legal ownership is clear." That's when I walked into the auditorium. The security guards, still on my old company ID system, let me through without question. I walked straight to the stage. "Hello, Victor," I said into the microphone. "Perhaps we should discuss the actual terms of Neural Core Technologies' license agreement?" The color drained from his face. In the front row, his lawyers were frantically flipping through documents. "The core technology that makes Neurotech's products possible," I continued, addressing the audience, "was never owned by Neurotech. It was licensed from my other company, Neural Core Technologies. That license expired today." Chaos erupted. Investors were shouting questions. Journalists were live-tweeting every word. Victor's carefully orchestrated product launch was imploding in real time. "You can't do this," he hissed at me. "We'll fight it in court." I smiled. "Check your acquisition documents, Victor. You were so busy forcing me to sign over Neurotech, you never asked about the intellectual property structure. You bought an empty shell." His lawyers had found it now, the licensing agreement buried in those thousands of pages of corporate documents. One of them was shaking his head at Victor, confirming my words. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the stunned audience, "Neural Core Technologies remains the sole owner of this revolutionary technology. We're happy to discuss licensing arrangements with serious partners who share our commitment to medical applications and ethical development." The next few hours were a blur of media interviews, legal discussions, and watching Neurotech's stock price plummet. Victor's dream of quick consumer products evaporated as investors realized he'd spent $20 million to acquire a company without its core technology. My phone was flooded with calls from other venture capital firms, medical technology companies, and even my former employees asking to join my new venture. But the most satisfying call came from the head of neurology at Johns Hopkins. "We've been following your work," he said. "Now that you're free from pressure to pursue consumer applications, would you be interested in partnering on advanced medical trials?" That was 3 months ago. Today, Neural Core Technologies is partnering with 5 major research hospitals, developing treatments for paralysis, neurological disorders, and stroke recovery. Our technology will help people walk again, communicate again, live independently again. Victor tried to sue, of course. But our legal documentation was impeccable. My father had made sure of that years ago. Always protect your core innovation, he taught me. Everything else is just packaging. Last week I received an offer to buy Neural Core Technologies for $2 billion. I declined. Some things are worth more than money. My former co-founders reached out, asking to join the new company. I wished them well but declined. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. The new research facility we're building has a plaque in the lobby that reads, "Technology in Service of Humanity." It's a reminder of why we started this journey and why protecting our core values was worth losing everything else. Yesterday, I visited a patient in our first advanced trial, a young woman paralyzed in a car accident. Using our interface, she moved a robotic arm to hug her daughter for the first time in 3 years. No consumer gadget could ever match the joy in their eyes. Victor Reynolds still gives interviews sometimes, claiming he was deceived. What he doesn't understand is that he deceived himself, too focused on quick profits to see the real value of what we'd created. The tech world has learned a new respect for careful legal structuring. Pull a neurotech has become Silicon Valley slang for protecting your intellectual property so well that hostile takeovers become pointless. My father retired last month, but he keeps his favorite memento framed in his home office. The $1 check Victor Reynolds wrote to buy my shares in Neurotech. Under it is a printout showing Neural Core Technologies' current valuation, $5 billion and growing. The best victories, he likes to say, are the ones your opponents don't see coming until it's too late. As for me, I'm back in my element, working with brilliant engineers, doctors and researchers to push the boundaries of neural interface technology. Our latest breakthrough might help Alzheimer's patients recover memories. We're developing it carefully, ethically, focused on medical applications rather than quick profits. The new company culture is different too. Every employee gets equity, but more importantly, they get our values written into their contracts. We're here to help people, not to chase IPOs. Sometimes Victor's sleek former Neurotech building catches my eye when I drive past. It's mostly empty now, a beautiful shell without its core technology. Rather like the company itself. In the end, he taught me an invaluable lesson. In technology as in life, what matters most is often invisible to those who only look at the surface. The real value isn't in the brand, the office, or even the bank account. It's in the fundamental innovations that make everything else possible. And those are worth protecting at any cost. Every morning as I walk into our research facility, I pass photos of patients whose lives we've helped transform. They remind me that losing my first company was actually winning something far more valuable, the freedom to use our technology the way it was always meant to be used. After all, some victories aren't measured in dollars, but in lives changed and hope restored. And that's a patent you can't put a price on.